video here about Affirm Holdings and Upstart. Firstly, I just thought we'd have a quick look at where we'll start with Affirm. We can see here that we've had a big dip in liquidity here, which is most likely reactional liquidity, and then we've had a big build between October 23 and October 22 and October 23, and then along the way we've had some top-ups. If we look at that on the daily, from the weekly, we can see here this big period, this big top up of buying of the underlying and tightening up of this market when it was bottoming, and this is very tight liquidity here, and here we can see is the tightest bit here. If we're looking at the irregular liquidity, red is loose, green and white, the whitest bit and green bit down here is the tightest or most illiquid period. And then we can see we've had a couple of tops here. We've had one in July and we've had another one in August, and then most recently we've had a little bit of one through this dip here. Then if we just quickly drop down into the 4 hours, we'll just see what's been happening. We've had this pullback here. These pullbacks have topped this up. I haven't actually checked to see whether we've had a full 0.5. No, we haven't. We've just had a 0.382. That would always concern me in a stock. I like to see a full reaction, but obviously we could a full retracement. This means that we will get a retracement later. Just sort of the laws of dynamics of hedging in markets is they mean revert at least to the 0.5. That being said, we can see through this latest period here we've had a nice dip here through the January period and picked up and refilled there with this dip here. Looking here, the top was about December, the end of November, top was December. So if we just quickly duck through to where we are now, this is in the red is the puts and in the green is the calls, and we've had several changes in the market here. I'm looking here at the shorter dated, I'm looking up to the 30-day options. We can see that we've got heavy hedging here, even though we've had earnings, and that's because earnings has only just happened this morning, and so it was hedged up until the end of the day's trading. Sorry, we had earnings in Australia your time, but we had earnings this evening, Thursday evening, the 6th. And we haven't actually seen a lot of other action in there, but it's still locked down. There hasn't been much positional play. If we go through and we have a look at the longer dated, which is where the long positions are usually held, we can see that they've strengthened up here. We've still got this as delta hedging as we've come off the bottom. And we've started to fill up here, but it's holding pretty tight. It's a pretty low delta position there. If we go and have a look through on the bigger chart, some very interesting things on the bigger chart. We'll go and have a look at that. We can see these very large builds when we came off, these huge builds of DPI. That was what we were looking at in those 2 periods of illiquidity. Here again, we've got another large period of very high DPI. To a lesser degree, we've had another period that we were looking at in this most recent period of early 24. And then if we look at this very recent one, we can see here that this is very high DPI for a market going down right up there in the 60s. So it's very high. So that was between about the 17th and the 23rd. So that's the same as the illiquidity we were looking at. And it's nice to see those correlations. We can also see that with the low gamma and the DPI and quite good falling IV, we've had a very strong buy signal there. Also with the price retreating, the returns is one of the factors that gives us a buy signal. The buy signal is in the green here, the ND buy signal. Very interestingly, if we go and have a look at these dates, we can see that the whole market is rising. I don't have a filter on these. This is the whole chain, and it rises and it slides across our linear time series matrix. And here, out of, it's not at an OPEX, it's not at a roll, a January or March, June, October roll of the quarterlies. It's on the between the 4th and the 5th of December. So what's happening on the 4th and the 5th of December? We can see that is the top. I've got the date here. That is the top. That is the top of this market. It's rolled at the top of this market, and it's rolled from being long to, I would say, these are shorted positions. So we've almost held the same gamma as we've gone through, or let me just change that. That can stay there. Let me change this. We've almost held the same gamma. It's just it started to retreat just before. We've almost held the same number of positions, but they've moved to the heavy side from being much more central. They've moved, and then they're slowly, as it slid down, they've become heavier and heavier on that slide through. And then we have returned to a normal positioning, and we've reduced here. We've had 40,000 positions taken off, open interest positions taken off in the calls at the same delta, and then that just allows it to strengthen. And then through this period, it's strengthened back up to 120, which was about where we were when that delta was rolled off. Very interesting how manufactured this is. This is the 5th, the 4th, and 5th of the month. This is at OPEX. And then we can see there's another nice sliding change here on the 3rd of the month. That timing being the OPEX falls here. So it's in the bottom of this buy. The market makers have had to slide across and re-hedge their positions, and that's what this big buy, this big DPI here in the OTC markets. That's what we can see there. So that's AFRAM. Where do we think it's positioned? If I quickly went into AFRAM, I can see that it's quite low. This is the longer dated. It's in a strong position. It's had a good buy signal. We saw that we can see that it's let's just change over to the other screen. We can see that it is now it has tightening liquidity. That tightening liquidity, I expect, unless we see a pullback today with some bad non-farm figures, I would say it's going to send this higher. It's travelled through this period reasonably with just a little bit of tightening in the bottom there, and now I expect to see that those positions will up the ante. It doesn't need a lot of push to see the market makers reaching for that ask. And increasing the velocity to the upside. That's AFRAM Holdings. Now let's quickly do Upstart, and we'll just start on Upstart. I like always looking at things the same way. We'll just quickly go through to the weekly. Upstart has a very similar chart. It's had a big reflexive liquidity here from the price dropping so much in such a short period of time during the 22 pullback, and then again it's had another build here. This second one here, when we haven't had much price discovery, is tightened again before letting that tightening off. And here we can see it became very loose at the top of here. There was no more buyers, and it's retraced down, and it's had to go for a second build. And here we go. We've seen a build here in the early parts of February, March, April, and then we've seen a second in the August dip where we saw some issues with the market. There was some good tight buying in there. Since then we haven't seen a lot. If we just quickly go through to the day. We haven't seen a lot of. We've seen some more small charges here in pullbacks, and again we've had quite a large charge here in this recent pullback. I think that this, to me, this is looking like a more substantial pullback. And if we quickly had a look at the 4 hours, we'll just try and get those some of the timings in here. So this topped between the 11th of November and the 13th of December, and it bottomed, and we had this recharge on about the 14th of January. So we can see again, we can see this dropping in and then tightening up very quickly. And we can just see this liquidity in this time layer here just slowly stretching out and then slowly tightening back up. And here we can see it's already dropping in, and expect to see something happen quickly with that. And if we just go through, just have a quick look to see what Upstart says in the options, to see whether it's as good looking in the options. So here we have a very different chart. We have a chart, we'll go back a little bit further. Here we go. Here we can see this slip across in the market. We had a very good earnings, and as opposed to just a topping here, we can see after it's happened, we have this great substantial shift in positions. That is to do, I expect, with a price rise that was in the order of 40%, which is a very large bump up at that earnings, and that would shift everything across. But then after that period, we've seen it tightened up and sold, and it's had a little bit of a blow off here before we start to see here the tightening in the hedging, and it's fallen back through. Till now there's very little hedging, but as we can see, there's not a lot of long, the positions aren't as great. It's in a way, it looks like it's a little bit looser there. If we go and have a look at the shorter dated stuff, which is where we usually see the moves, oh, we're going to need to go out to a month. So the filter's jamming up there a little bit. No, we can see that this as well, coming into earnings on Tuesday, is quite heavily hedged in the short terms here, and I can't see that there hasn't yet been any movement to suggest upside to that. I expect it's still quite squeezy if we got a good non-farm payroll, but it'd be interesting to see how their earnings coming in, whether they're going to be as strong as what we've just. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong chart. That's why. I'm talking garbage, aren't I? Very similar position. We've got into the 31st of the 1st, and it's locked up the same sort of positioning. A little bit more of a build, but only slightly more than we saw in Affirm. Upstart here is a little bit solider, and it is still tightening with a few days to go. I'm sorry that I missed that I was looking at the same chart. They're so similar, and I had looked at them before I started making the video. So that's the two candidates that we're looking at for this coming week and the coming play, and I hope that that's helped you with making some of your decisions for that. Thank you.